On today's episode of the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele, we are diving into Tuesday's juicy 9-game betting and DFS board. You know we have you covered, and we're doing a little trade deadline target. Who would you rather with two big name forwards?
You're Locked On Fantasy Hockey, your daily podcast on fantasy hockey. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hockey heads and degenerate gamblers alike, welcome back to your go-to source for everything that you need to make a little bit of money. It's the Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast with Flip and Steele, and we are very happy to be here for a big-time Tuesday episode, which is going to feature a dive into a juicy 9-game betting board, a tasty DFS target board, and to start the show, Steele, we've been doing this already since the reboot of this show, brother. The little who would you rather, looking at some big fantasy names. We've looked at goalies, we've looked at D-men, and today we're going to be looking at some forwards, both of which are big name trade deadline targets. Steele, welcome back for episode number 24, and we are going to dive right into it, brother, with a little who would you rather.
I'm excited. I'm excited for this conversation. Flip and I, we're going to be talking about some of the biggest names on the trade list right now. JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks and Tomas Hertl of the San Jose Sharks. Some of the big names on this trade list. You know, we've already talked about a couple. Claude Giroux, where he might go in that Central Division, with the three big names, the three big teams from there.
Yep.
I'm very interested, to kind of see where JT Miller and Hertl are going to end up. If they do get traded, what teams? Is it going to be like a deep playoff run for one of them? Yeah. They have been absolutely spectacular for both of their teams.
Yeah, we're going to dive right into it, and I'm going to take the angle of Tomas Hertl. And, this is an interesting one to look at, Steele. You just mentioned that both guys are likely to be on the move. Names swirling around both of these guys for sure. Just right off the bat, though, I don't know where either of them are going to land, but I will say this. Wherever they do, you can count on it being a significant uptick in their fantasy value, I would say.
Yeah.
So
both of these players, rightfully so. JT Miller, I think he's at 98% owned on ESPN and Yahoo right now. Hertl just a little bit under at 85%. So these guys are pretty much on everyone's fantasy team, and rightfully so. Look, if we're going out of who I'd rather want on my fantasy team, I think it's clear. There's no question. It's JT Miller for me. He's been absolutely lights out. One of the biggest reasons why Vancouver, kind of did a full 180, complete turnaround from where they were at the beginning of the season. With Elias Pettersson not playing the way that we've seen him in the past, JT Miller really stepped up for the Vancouver team. 590 fantasy points, 20 goals on the season, 59 points for the Vancouver Canucks. He leads them in this stats right here. Mm-hmm. 26 power play points, 2 shorthanded points, and 6 game-winning goals. This guy has done absolutely everything for the Vancouver Canucks to even have them remotely in a playoff run right now, or in a playoff race.
It's true, Steele. I'm not gonna deny the fact that you have a little bit of an easier side to take when JT Miller has looked as good. No, when he's looked as good as he has, I'll due respect. He's been on fire. Whereas, my guy Hertl, he's on a 9-game goalless drought, right? Like he hasn't buried in 9 games, and that's just not going to cut it. I will say this though. He still has 22 goals and 20 assists through 53 games. He's playing in San Jose, and while I will talk about San Jose later in the show, tease when we get to our DFS and betting board, stay tuned for that. There is no one really there that he gets to play with. JT Miller has the benefit of playing on a power play unit that features Besser, Horvat, Pettersson, and Pettersson has been a lot better of late. You mentioned him not being great, and JT Miller really stepping up. That is a great point. That is a fact, both of them. What is also a fact, though, is he has the benefit of playing with a lot more talented guys. So I'll say this about Hertl. He has the goal scoring caliber. I talk about it all the time to really make a difference to a team down the stretch, Steele. And I think if he goes to the right place, his fantasy value could skyrocket. Yeah. But I will give you the credit that JT Miller, up till this point in the season, has proven that he's a very solid number one fantasy asset.
Yeah, if this was a year ago, it would have been a coin flip for me. Tomas Hertl and JT Miller over the span of their careers have put up relatively the same numbers in all the categories: points, hits, shots, blocks, mostly relatively close to one another. If we're just talking about this year alone, JT Miller by a landslide for me. He's got more penalty minutes, so that's huge for banger leagues. Double the amount of hits, so it's big for banger leagues as well. 126 shots, 37 blocks, 15 more power play points. So there's just a lot of things that he's been able to do for the Vancouver Canucks that I haven't really seen at the same sort of level from Tomas Hertl.
That's fair, definitely. And I think the angle that I'm taking with this and why I would rather have Tomas Hertl is the likelihood that he gets dealt is a lot higher. In my opinion, I think he's number 5 on the TSN trade bait boards.
Yeah.
JT Miller's somewhere like 23rd on it. That's just a board by one, group coming out of Canada. It's not the be all and end all. But Hertl does a little bit of everything as well. His versatility can't be ignored. And if you factor in the skyrocketing aspect, if he goes to the right team, because he is more likely to get dealt, I'm trying to sell this here for you, but 54% on the faceoff dot this year, and he can also play the wing. So you have that eligibility. I've been talking about that a little bit over the course of the week. You have that eligibility from a fantasy perspective, Steele, especially down the stretch. You can't deny that can be a bonus when it comes to injuries. So that's another little plus in Hertl's column if I'm trying to squeeze a little bit out of this stone here.
Look, both of these players have been absolutely fantastic. I said it at the very beginning. Ever since Hertl has come into this league, he's had a lot of swagger around his name. We saw that from one of his first exhibition games. Remember that 4-goal game? He went through the legs, top corner on Lundqvist. So ever since he's come into the league, he's had swagger. He's been great for fantasy hockey league owners. JT Miller, this is why I love these who would you rather, these conversations, because we're able to go back and forth. And the thing is these are both fantastic hockey players, but on a different year, it could be Hertl for me right now. But for right now, it's got to be JT Miller. He's just absolutely wonderful to watch.
At the end of the day, I wanted to take a look at 2 guys that were on that trade bait board, 2 guys that are probably, one more than the other, with Hertl being more likely to move, but I could see both of them being moved.
Yeah.
But I wanted to look at them because I wanted to make this point that either way, I know they're basically owned in most leagues already, but this is the kind of thing that if if JT Miller goes to the Toronto Maple Leafs, I know he's already having a good season, but Michael Bunting might win the Calder for playing with Martin. What does JT Miller do in the mix there in Toronto? I'm just saying, you see the shirt I'm wearing, but it doesn't matter. So Hertl goes somewhere too, right? Hertl goes to some, I don't even really know all the teams in the mix, but I'm sure whatever they are, he's going to slot right into that top 6. And these are guys that you absolutely have to keep an eye on because they can really change the game for you down the stretch fantasy-wise, right? You're looking for something to put yourself over the top, make a move for one of these guys that might get dealt for at the trade deadline, Steele. I don't know what you think about that angle.
No, I completely agree with everything you just said.
Thank you, sir.
If Hertl were to be on the move, any team that he goes to, the stock value is going to go up. He is still at 85%, so you're most likely going to trade for a guy.
Yeah.
I was just thinking about this, while you were talking right then, and I know it's sort of on topic, but a little bit off topic.
Let's do it.
I've heard that the Rangers might be going after JT Miller as well.
Yeah, I could see
If they said that they can't get Miller, they might go after Mark Scheifele. What would you think about that?
Whoa.
I can't even think about Scheifele being off the Winnipeg Jets team.
I cannot see that unless, but what have we said before? There's something that doesn't smell right in Winnipeg this season. And we don't really know what the overall direction of that team is, right? Maybe they need a shakeup. I don't see that happening. Mark Scheifele is a stud. That would really rattle that room in Winnipeg. But holy crow, that is a spicy little tidbit there, good friend. But one of the tidbits that I just wanted to holler at, guys, is thank you so much for making us your first listen every single day. We are part of the Locked On Network, and we really, really appreciate all the love. Make sure you head out there and you check us out on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. I say it every day because we appreciate it. Hammer that subscribe button. Steele and I are out here feeding you the fire content, the hot picks, the DFS selections. Stay tuned to the rest of the show where we'll be diving in to this 9-game betting board tonight that has got me all kinds of fired up. But in the meantime, I just wanted to tell you about BetOnline. Football might be over this season, but basketball, it's full steam ahead for both pro and college hoops. From all the latest odds, totals, player performance props to where the next fired coach is going to land, betonline.net is the number one spot for all your sports betting needs. BetOnline remains the best spot for all the sports scores, podcasts, and news this season, and it's not just basketball. BetOnline.net is your source for hockey, boxing, UFC, and all the odds that wrapped up with the Olympic coverage last week. Head to the website today or on your mobile device to learn more about all the trends in the action. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. For your next listen, you have to go check out Locked On Now podcast, nightly recaps of every NHL game with analysis from our local experts. You don't want to miss out on this. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So like Flip said, please make sure you subscribe, follow. You'll get the latest episodes of Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast, and we appreciate all the love out there. So thank you so much for that. Flip, Tuesday night, a way bigger night for DFS and big-time bets. 9 games in total on the schedule. A lot of teams that we've talked about in the past, but there's one team that really stuck out to me for their matchup, but also we haven't shown them a lot of love on the podcast because, you know, we've always been talking about the Vegas Golden Knights, the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, some of the top teams, which this team also is. Tampa Bay Lightnings versus the Ottawa Senators is the first game I'm looking at for DFS selections. I think right off the top of my head, Flip, Steven Stamkos. We haven't really discussed about him in a long time. Everyone's kind of, you know, not focused on him because of how well Matthews, McDavid, Draisaitl, Huberdeau are playing. Stamkos, 59 points in 50 games, absolutely one of the reasons why the Tampa Bay Lightning are still one of the best teams in the league right now.
This is one thing about the Atlantic Division that if you're a fan of the Boston Bruins or the Toronto Maple Leafs or any of them for that matter, the best teams in that division by a long shot are the two Floridian teams in the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning. And I think almost because some of those Southern teams like the Hurricanes and Panthers this year are having great seasons, people aren't talking about the Lightning. And sure, I know dedicated hockey circles, no one's sleeping on the Tampa Bay Lightning, the 2-time reigning Cup champions. But it's funny that you really pointed out a really interesting point there is that we haven't talked about them, and they are absolutely sensational. And Andrei Vasilevsky is a criminally underrated goaltender who, if he goes on a run, he's that kind of goalie that stands on his head, and you're not beating Tampa Bay when he plays like that.
Look, last year and for the last 3, 4, 5 years, I would say, I've always had Andrei Vasilevsky as the best goalie in the league. He's just been absolutely incredible to watch, especially in that back-to-back champion years with the Lightning. Look, for DFS selections, obviously I got to go with Vasilevsky in this game. He's an absolute stud. I'm also putting him with Steven Stamkos and Victor Hedman. It's going to be tough to, incorporate all of the guys they have. Anthony, Nikita Kucherov, Braden Point. So because I want to go with Vasilevsky, Hedman, Stamkos, I might also pair him up with Anthony Cirelli. He's playing on the second line with Steven Stamkos. Of course, you're going to be paying premium price for the big 3 stars there, Stamkos, Hedman, and Vasilevsky. But a guy like Anthony Cirelli, he's been very underrated this year. He stepped up big when Point and Kucherov were out with injury. He's not going to be super expensive because that top line is back together. Pair him up with Steven Stamkos on that second line. Stamkos, he's got 7 points in his last 4 games. Absolute stud so far for the Tampa Bay Lightning. So I got to go with those 3 players right there.
I think there's also some value to be had with, and I talk about guys that I know because that's what I'm comfortable with when I'm giving you guys advice. I have Andre Palat in a few different
Yeah.
formats, and he's a very, very solid DFS selection. He flies under the radar a lot of times. He's not a household name, so you don't usually have to pay a premium price for him. Mind you, Steele mentioned this top line is back together with Point and Kucherov, so you might have to, depends on your budget here, but also look to a guy like Andre Palat, who's been very solid over the past number of seasons for the Tampa Bay Lightning up front, really solidifying their top 6 forward group.
Yeah, they've been even their depth players been absolutely fantastic to watch. They've had underrated seasons. You can even toss Alex Killorn in there as well,
for sure.
Who's been very steady guys. They really stepped up when Point and Kucherov were out of the lineup. So I gotta show them some love. A lot of DFS selections there, who I'm going to be taking against this Ottawa team that we've talked about. But again, Ottawa Senators compared to the back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, there's not really a comparison here. They're just super dominant all over the ice. That is my first DFS selections with those top 3 players. There's a lot of matchups I looked at for Tuesday night because there's just a lot of games.
Exactly.
The second matchup I had to go with, and I haven't personally talked about them a lot, but it is the Carolina Hurricanes.
Okay.
I think there is some great value to find on that team because if you're going to go with the top dogs in Tampa Bay, Teuvo Teravainen, one of the best and underrated players on that team right now, really bounced back after a lot of concussions last season. So he's having a terrific season. 11 points in 8 games. I'm also going to throw Trocheck in there because he's been underrated. 4 points in his last 5 games.
He's looked good.
He's looked really good.
Yep.
And they're both on the top power play unit. So got to show some love to those 2 guys as well.
I like that we're talking about some of the teams that we haven't talked about as much because I feel like we really were. It was like Seattle Kraken, New York Rangers, Ottawa Senators, and like the Oilers on repeat for a couple of weeks. So much love for riding with us, everybody. Really appreciate that. And we hope you're enjoying everything that you're listening to. And please make sure that, we can appreciate all the feedback. Hit us up online. Let us know. DMs are open. Drop us a review, smash us with a freaking subscribe. We really appreciate it. And stay tuned because we've got the big time bets coming up around the corner. But Steele, my angle for DFS before you wrap up, I'm looking at a team and I don't know, you might be going, oh, there's Kookie Flip going off the map again. But hear me out. Little bit of value here to sprinkle on to what you're saying with the Tampa Bay Lightning, because I think there's something to be said about the way that they're playing and the spot for them there. But I think there's some value for some of the guys on the San Jose Sharks. I'm going to talk about it in a couple of minutes here, and I always say this, but I like this spot. The Vegas Golden Knights burned us in a very bad way to end the week last week. We were all over social media talking up the spot for the Vegas Golden Knights, and they came out and laid an absolute egg. And they're not playing great right now. You pointed out that Leonard is still out. Stone is that's a key injury. And I know they have Eichel back, and they're still very much alive. Like this spot for San Jose. There'll be some value for guys like, Barabanov, Logan Couture, hint, Tomas Hertl, we talked about it. So anyway, I might be off on a bit of a tangent there, but I would say take a look at the San Jose Sharks for some value on Tuesday night.
Yeah, they could bring a lot of value. I wouldn't suggest them from a big time bet situation. I would not be betting against the Vegas Golden Knights right now. I know they played a very bad game against the Arizona Coyotes. They burned us Flip, but look, we're still talking about some of the best players in the NHL.
No doubt.
That team is going to be incredible when they're all healthy in the playoffs. It's going to be exactly what happened with the Tampa Bay Lightning when they got Kucherov back from LTIR. So,
stay tuned after the break, kids, and we will dive right into that.
I'm super interested to what you have to say. I might, we might get a little side bet action here.
Buckle up. It's been a while for a side bet. We're looking for some action, but buckle up because you know what's coming up after the break.
All right, so a little side bet action for you guys. I'm just gonna real quick mention some cheap options for DFS. I talked about the Carolina Hurricanes and the Tampa Bay Lightning. Jake DeBrusk from the Boston Bruins, Ricard Raquel from the Anaheim Ducks, Alex Newhook, who you and I have talked about. I'm also going to throw Alex Romanov, a defenseman on the Montreal Canadiens. I think he's been having an underrated season, with some of the guys on the blue line not really being very big offensively. I think that's a very underrated guy who you can get some, value there for very cheap. So those are the guys I'm going to list for cheap options for DFS selections. Before we get into big time bets, I have to let you know about Rock Auto. This episode is brought to you by Rock Auto. With the increasing numbers of makes and models, it's now almost impossible for local chain auto parts stores to have what you need in stock. I know that I get very confused, always very intimidated by some of the questions I'm asked. I don't really understand what I'm being told, and it just gets very confusing. Instead of having to deal with that situation, you have devices with access to rockauto.com at home and in your pocket. You'll be able to save time, save money using Rock Auto, and you don't have to spend 30, 50, even 100% more from parts and stuff and things that you need from rockauto.com. For example, if you buy a fuel pump, it's $353 from a local chain store when you can get it for $215 from Rock Auto. Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Write Locked On in their How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selections, reliable prices, all the parts your car will ever need from rockauto.com. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. Don't forget, we are free and available on all podcast platforms, which also includes YouTube. So please go make sure you subscribe, follow us, and you'll get the latest episodes of Locked On Fantasy Hockey as soon as they're available every day, Monday to Friday. Thank you so much for all the love and support out there, Flip, and I appreciate it. Flip, big time bets.
Do it.
We teased it a little bit in that last segment there. What is going on with this Vegas Golden Knights San Jose Sharks bet you got going on?
All right. If you want me to get into it, I'll get right into it because I'm feeling good today. I told you I was fired up. I don't know what it is. I got the Tuesday vibes. I got the Friday feeling early. But let's get right into it, Steele. I don't think I'm going as crazy off the old noodle as you think. I am not going to be betting on the San Jose Sharks here, even though I like this spot. So let's not get carried away. I don't have that much money to just throw around, although I do like the spot for the San Jose Sharks. Let's be clear. The Vegas Golden Knights have not played well over the last stretch of games, and Robin Lehner's, absence, I think, is really starting to wane on that blue line big time. Laurent Brossoit was looking pretty good for a little bit, and he's a decent backup option, but he is not a number one goalie. The Golden Knights have allowed 19 combined goals over their previous 6 games. They're letting in a lot of goals. The reason why I like this spot for the San Jose Sharks, Steele, and I'll get into why my pick is Logan Couture anytime assist here in a second, aside from him having a really good season on a pretty bad team. He's riding a 4-game point streak, and the San Jose Sharks are only 8 games back of these very same Golden Knights. They are 8 points. Whew, I got this. They're 8 points back of these very same Golden Knights and 7 points back of the final wild card spot. So they have a lot to play for still. Vegas is not looking great. They are shaken. The rest of the division knows this, and they're making a move. So Logan Couture has had a great season. He's very steady veteran, 18 goals and 22 assists this year. 4-game point streak that includes 3 goals and 2 assists. I bet this the other night. He had an assist. I was liking it. I got almost 2-1 on my money steal. I think you're going to get another really good odd for a Logan Couture anytime assist here. And I just overall like this spot for the Sharks. So I will not be betting them, but I think this is a close game. I think this is a 1-goal game either way. Coin flip, lean Vegas. But Logan Couture anytime assist is my first pick of the night in a favorable spot for a San Jose Sharks team who still has a lot to play for, Steele, believe it or not.
Look, I like everything you said there. It is going to be, I think it is a close game, and everything you said there about the San Jose Sharks, I completely agree with. The way I was looking at it was, ever since the, beginning of December, they've sort of trended in the wrong direction. They've been sliding down the standings while teams have been going up. It is very close in the standings. I'm not going to disagree with you there. Again, I actually didn't even bet on this game because you are completely right that, it is going to be a lot closer than we expect.
I think so.
I stayed away from this game. So my first pick is going to be a player prop, and it's going to be my lock of the night. It is Patrick Laine anytime goal. I just think where, how he's been playing for the Columbus Blue Jackets, there's nothing to be denied. 21 points in 11 games. He has gone scoreless in his last 2, but again, that was against the Pittsburgh Penguins and Carolina Hurricanes, the two of the top teams in the entire NHL right now. And the Columbus Blue Jackets are going up against the New Jersey Devils. A lot of goals have been given up in those games. It's probably going to be a high-scoring game. I seriously doubt Patrick Laine doesn't get on the scoreboard. So I'm going with a Patrick Laine anytime goal. He's been absolutely fire. In this ever since 2022 started, ever since the beginning of January. Anytime goal, that will be my lock of the night.
Well, you're going to very much like where I'm headed for my lock of the night, sir, and some of the statistics I have to throw at you there, because what you're saying there is spot on, Mike. And what I'm going to get to here is one other potentially curious pick that you might not be loving as well, but I think it's a very advantageous situation for this New York Islanders team going up against the Colorado Avalanche. I know this is going to be a hard sell, but hang with me for a second. It's one of these spots, Steele, that you've done it a couple of times, and I don't know if it's panned out, so maybe I should learn from you. But I just can't really explain when I looked at this one that it didn't smell right for me, and maybe it's because when I looked at the schedule, this next stretch of games for the Colorado Avalanche, they play the Islanders twice, the Coyotes once, and then the Senators, I believe. And I've already seen them play down to their competition a couple of times in ugly losses this season to the Coyotes, Senators, and Dallas Stars twice. So the New York Islanders are 6-3-1 over their last 10 games against Colorado, which includes 5 wins out of their last 7. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm going to chicken out and take the Islanders plus 1.5 on the puck line, minus 115. I think this is going to be a close game. I don't have the cojones to go and tell you to go bet outright on the Islanders, but I'm crazy enough to do it. So I'm going to do that. But for all y'all out there, for a little free money pick from Big Flip, Islanders plus 1.5 on the puck line, minus 115 right now. I'm feeling a close game here, Steele, and I'm, call me crazy, but let's get it.
It is a little out there.
Thank you.
I'm trying to wrap my head around it.
It's okay.
Some things you said there, I completely agree with. They have been playing a lot better. They do still have a decent amount of games in hand. It's very unlikely they make the playoffs, but you're right. They have played a lot better recently, except for their last game. They lost 5-2 to the Vancouver Canucks.
Canucks are red hot.
They are red hot right now.
But anyway, there's nothing really to sell you on it other than the things that I said, the decent track record over the last 10, but we'll see how it goes.
Exactly. I do like that you picked, the Islanders at plus 1.5 on the money line. It could be a very close game, but I went the same route. So I went with the Colorado Avalanche on the money line at minus 300. I think, that's a pretty safe bet right there. They are the best team in the NHL. You can obviously put them up there with the Florida Panthers, but for me, it's the Colorado Avalanche. They've been absolutely dominant over the stretch of the season, the entirety of the season. That's going to be, the easy bet for me, easy money. This one I'm taking a chance on. The Calgary Flames, they were on a 10-game win streak. They lost the Vancouver Canucks. They dominated the Minnesota Wild on Saturday night. In this game, I'm taking the over 6 goals, Flames and Wild, because over the stretch, both of these teams have just been putting up crooked numbers.
Yes, sir.
Especially on the Flames side. So I got to go with the over 6 goals in this game.
I like it, Steele. And they have been putting up crooked numbers. I like saying that, and it's true. I think that's a spicy little pick. That number could probably creep up too. So jump up on it while you can at 6, or if you have to, do the old teaser special and tease it down for a little bit of a lower odd. But my lock of the night to wrap up this bad boy with a bow. The New Jersey Devils, who played last night, are going into Columbus. And I know you mentioned the Columbus's 2 losses over their last 2. They had won the previous 4 games in a row. And those 2 games were the 2 losses were at the hands of the Carolina Hurricanes and Pittsburgh Penguins, 2 very good teams. This is a very big game for the Columbus Blue Jackets. They are still, I'm talking about teams who are alive still. I'm liking these angles for the teams who still have something to play for. Columbus Blue Jackets have a shot in the Metro Division, more so at the wild card, but they're coming, and they're coming on nicely. And a big reason is Patrick Laine. They're doing it without their number 1 goalie as well. The Blue Jackets are 8-1-1 over their last 10 against New Jersey. And, the part of that 4-game win streak, Steele, was 2 very convincing wins, in my opinion, against the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. So we've seen that Columbus can do this. We've seen Laine is really starting to push the pace there for that offensive group. I like your bet of an anytime Laine goal. I really like the Columbus Blue Jackets here at home with New Jersey on the second night of a back-to-back. who knows who's going to be in net for this New Jersey Devils team. Take a dart and throw it at the board, because I don't even know if they know. There's 4 or 5 different goalies on that roster. Anyway, Blue Jackets, money line, -155. That is my heavy lock of Tuesday night. I'm thinking I might get real stinky with it and just put a big old bet. But thank me later. Blue Jackets money line, -155.
I love that our lock of the nights are coming from the same game. Look, JF Berube of the Columbus Blue Jackets stepped up big. I believe Merzlikins is back for the Columbus Blue Jackets, so they have their starting goal.
I have to point this out, Steele. The last time you and I were feeling a pick in the same game, Vegas got skunked.
It didn't pan out.
We're bouncing back in a big way, baby. Let's go.
Big way. Okay, flip Columbus Blue Jackets on the money line. My lock of the night, Patrick Laine, anytime goal. Columbus Blue Jackets against the New Jersey Devils. Pencil it in for Tuesday night. Lock it in. Put your bets down. Make some money. Thank you for making Locked On Fantasy Hockey Podcast your first listen every day. If you want more gambling advice, you have to go check out Locked On Bets. Make it your second listen of the day, your daily one-stop shop for all your gambling needs. Locked On Bets. It's hosted by your boy Q with insight from Lee Sterling. It's free and available on all podcast platforms, just like this podcast right here. So please go make sure you subscribe, follow us on your favorite podcast platform. You'll get the latest episodes of this podcast whenever you want, Monday to Friday. It's released at 7 o'clock in the morning Eastern time. Thank you so much for tuning in for today's episode with Flip and I. Have a great day. Good luck with all your bets out there, and we shall see you back here again tomorrow.
Peace.